What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. We're on the same page. Today I am so excited because I get to talk about The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. Now, obviously, this is not the actual book. This is a copy of Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson with the cover of The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding on top of it, but I was not lucky enough to be able to go to BEA and receive a physical copy, but I was lucky enough to be able to receive an ebook copy through NetGalley from Alexandra Bracken and Disney Hyperion. So I am so thankful to them. I am over the moon excited that I am able to talk to you all about this today. If any of you have been looking at the backgrounds of my videos, you'll see that right over top of my head is actually my Alexandra Bracken shelf. I love her so much. I have read The Darkest Minds and Passenger, and I need to read Wayfarer. I don't know why I keep putting it off. I think it's because I have to read Passenger first, even though everyone told me you need to read Passenger and then read Wayfarer so that you don't have to reread both of them. And so when I saw that The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding was out on NetGalley to be able to be requested, I freaked out. And then I was even more excited when I was actually provided a copy by Disney Hyperion. I actually got the email from NetGalley and from Disney Hyperion on my way back from the mountain trip that I took a couple of weeks ago, and I was in the car with me and one of my best friends who also absolutely adores Alexandra Bracken and all of her work. And we bonded over the Darkest Minds series together, and she was in the car with me, and I freaked out. I have never been more excited to receive an ARC in my entire life. So, needless to say, I'm really excited about this book, and I'm excited to start discussing it with you, so let's get right on into it. So for those of you who don't know, Alexandra Bracken is a young adult author, or she's mostly a young adult author. The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding is actually her first middle grade novel. So that leads me on to, what is this book about? So The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding is all about this kid named Prosper Redding, who's a part of the Redding family. The Redding family is an influential family that founded this town called Red Hood. Red Hood is just sort of this town that the Reddings have set up. It's your standard creepy, kooky town, and there's a little bit of mystery about it. There's not much actually about the Reddings that most people know, except for the fact that they're just sort of like that family that runs the town. Prosper's grandma actually is the mayor of the town, and his family has been leading the town ever since they established it. And they have a bunch of buildings and stuff around town that they have established. But not much actually goes on in the town until one day, right before Prosper's 13th birthday, when he is told by his family members that one of his great-great-great-something grandfathers made a pact with a demon or a fiend or a malefactor. All of those terms are used in this book to mean the same thing. And then he promptly broke it, which means that Prosper is now left to deal with the fallout of breaking that. So let's get into some of my non-spoilery thoughts about The Dreadful Tale. So one of my favorite things that I love about Alexandra Bracken's works is that I love all of her characters. There's usually a group of characters, and if there isn't a group of characters, then there's usually the main character and then a lot of little side characters that you get to introduce to. And they're usually witty and sarcastic, but they have a lot of heart, and Prosper is no different. Most of the story follows Prosper Redding as he's the main character, and it's through his point of view that we get the story. However, we do get a lot of other little characters throughout the story, and my favorite one specifically is Nell. Nell's full name is actually Cornelia, and we meet her some point later on in the book. I'm not going to tell you when. But I absolutely loved Nell. I thought she was hysterical. I loved that she had a big fro that she had to deal with. She kept putting it into buns. She is a sassy, snarky character till the end. My favorite type of character is the sassy, witty character that also has a lot of heart, and I think that Nell is specifically one of those characters. Nell is super passionate about everything that she loves in the world. She is a theater kid, which, can I tell you how excited I was to see not only the arts, but also theater just highlighted in this book? Like, I don't think I can explain. I love when theater kids are in books and they're actually theater kids. They're not like the side character that is really made fun of or is the laughingstock of the whole book. I love it when theater characters are actually shown as theater characters, or that any character in general has a love of the arts. I think that a lot of books don't cover how cool the arts are, and both Nell and Prosper are a part of the arts in their school. Nell is really into theater, but she's also into a lot of other classes in school. She's really interested in Greek mythology, which is a section of one of the classes that she's taking, and Prosper is an artist, and he is fantastic. There are a lot of descriptions about how well he's doing and how much he puts himself down because he doesn't want to bring it up, and I think that that's important because a lot of theater kids or a lot of people in the arts, I've noticed, don't want to let their expression shine, and I thought it was really cool to be able to have not only one but two characters in the story be really involved in the art. That is my little section about how much I appreciated seeing theater kids. So even though Nell and Prosper had a lot of sassy, witty, snarky comebacks, and they were pretty much BA characters in terms of action and getting stuff done, I also really appreciated that both Prosper and Nell Cornelia had a lot of heart. I really appreciate that Alexandra Bracken creates multifaceted characters. You're not going to find a character that's just the theater kid or just the witty kid or just somebody who's snarky or smart or whatever else in Alexandra Bracken's books. All of her characters, even the side characters, are multidimensional, especially you could see this in this book in Prosper and Nell. Their story arcs were incredibly diverse. They both were much different from the way that they started in the end of the book. They grew a lot, which I loved. The second point that I want to highlight is how much I love the story. It was so good. It reels you in from the very beginning, and it doesn't let you go all the way until the end, and it is just like one climax after the other all the way through the book, and I loved it. It was fantastic. There were many good twists in this book, which was surprising because, like, maybe this is a stereotype of just the middle grade genre in general, but often you think of the big, like, twists and turns and, like, gritty suspense and stuff like that to be in young adult novels or in adult novels, and Alexandra Bracken actually pulled off, like, twists and turns in this novel, which I really appreciated, and I was genuinely shocked. I was like, I did not see the story going in that direction. This book was not as creepy as I thought it was going to be, and I appreciated that. I am not usually somebody who deals with demons or demons in books. I just don't want to go there. It's not something that I'm interested in, and this book twist the demon thing so that you're not as like, oh, that's a demon who's invading somebody's body. You're like, oh, that's an actual, like, another character with more dimensions and another personality, instead of being like, oh, that's creepy, there's like a demon in this person's body. Like, that's just really off-putting and I don't want to deal with that. This book keeps a very level tone between creepy and being funny and comedic and still being appropriate for middle grade people. And it's one of those stories, and I'm not going to give too much away, but it's one of those stories where you are compassionate for not only the villain, but also you're compassionate for the protagonist. And I think that seeing both the reason why the protagonist is doing what they're doing and both the reason why the villain is doing what they're doing makes for a much more interesting story overall, and I really appreciated that about this novel. But also the story was just interesting in general. I mean, you have a family that made a pact with a demon and then eventually broke it, and now somebody down their line has to deal with the repercussions of that, and for a lot of the beginning of the novel you're like, what is happening, until it's explained to you, because it is explained to you very well, by the way. All of the story plot points are, like, very thought out, and all of the magic systems make sense, which I also appreciated, but you're like, what is happening? Like, people just don't get invaded by demons. Like, that's just not really something that you expect to commonly happen, and especially not if you are the person who's dealing with the repercussions of somebody breaking a pact with a demon. That's also just, like, not cool. So from the very beginning you're like, I want to figure out what happened. I want to know why Prosper is dealing with the side effects of something that his ancestor is doing. I want to know what is happening in Red Hood because it seems creepy and I don't exactly know what's happening. I want to get to know Nell better and what is happening on her side of the family, and I want to figure out more about how Prosper grows and learns and how he fights this demon, or if he gets out, because, like, that is something that I want to know ASAP, because if I had a demon in me, I would be like, can we get him out as soon as humanly possible? Thank you, okay, great. Whatever you could do to help my case would be fantastic. I also wanted to note that This book covers a surprisingly large amount of topics, and I'm holding up this because I wrote them all down as I was reading, but some of the topics that this book covers, it's not focused on covering these topics, but this is what this book covers in a lot of sections, is family, the lengths that we will go to protect our family, the harsh reality of history and how dark our past can be, the values of life and what happens afterwards, duty, honor, friendship, self-expression, using our talents, women in history and society, etc. Even though this book is not specifically centered around any of those topics, it's not trying to highlight it or make a politically correct point about any of those topics or bring it up for discussion. This book covers all of those topics, and I thought it was cool that so many topics were covered, and all of them were themes that I saw in the story, and all of them were themes that I was genuinely interested in, and points that were made that were really valid. But it's also not the main topic of the story. I just thought that it was cool that all of those topics were worked in, and I appreciated seeing them a lot, especially acknowledging stuff that our ancestors did and how history is not always kind to everyone, and specifically women and how they were viewed in society and what they can do now in like women empowerment. If you know anything about me, or if you know me in real life, you know that I'm really big on women empowerment, and so I thought that that was cool. Every book has pros and cons, and even though this book was really good and I loved it a lot, and I could probably just like keep going on and on about how much I loved this book and how much I like Alexandra Bracken's work in general, there were some cons that I saw, but there were not a lot. The first con that I found in this story was that some of the beats were a little bit, and that has to do with the setup and payoff way that the story is written and how you can sort of see some of the plot points coming in. Most of them were genuinely twisty. Like, at the end, I was like, this is shocking, and this other thing is shocking, and I didn't see that coming. But there were some points that were like, I sort of predicted this would happen. Or there were some points that were built up like, there's no way that this could happen. Like, it's definitely not the person that you're thinking of. And maybe it's just because I played too many Nancy Drew games, and so I just know that, like, those are hints to what's happening. Like, and so that, like, just depleted my enjoyment a little bit, just because I could predict some of the things that were happening, but I couldn't predict all of them, and so it didn't completely ruin it for me. I don't think it even got close to ruining it for me. It was just something that I was like, oh, I saw that coming a bit, but not in everything. The other part of this story that I had some problems with is that in every story there are going to be sections that just drag a little bit more, sections in between action, and I think that the beginning of the book and the end of the book are end-capped and bookended by a lot of action, and so there's some sections in the middle where you're developing characters, or you're getting exposition, or you're hanging out with Alistair specifically, where you're like, it's dragging, like, just a little bit, and I would like to pick up the pace, but also, like, you're getting through it really quickly, and so it's not one of those novels that drags on, and you're just like, I don't know how you expect me to get through this. It's not one of those. It's just, there were some sections where I was like, okay, I'm gonna, like, read this, but it's just, like, dragging a little bit, and it's like, I would sort of like to pick up the pace a little bit. However, those were the only two cons that I saw, and compared to everything else that I liked, the diversity, the topics that were covered, the storyline, the character development, and the characters themselves, I think that the pros in this case drastically outweigh the cons, and so I would highly recommend that you go pick up The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, and if there are any more books in this series, I don't know if there are going to be more books in this series, but it is marked as the first one on Goodreads, and so I'm sort of hoping that there are more of them, and if there are any more in this series, I will absolutely pick them up 100%. So that is everything. That is all that I have to say about The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. Honestly, I could go on and on about how much I like this book and how much I am looking forward to other books, but what I really think that you should do is go out and read it for yourself. It's a super quick read, and I highly recommend it. So thank you again very much to Disney Hyperion and to NetGalley and to Alexandra Bracken for allowing me to read this book in advance and get an advanced reader copy of it. I know that not many people were getting it, and so I was super excited. When you read this book, or if you read this book when it comes out on September 5th, let me know what you think about it down in the comments below. I would love to hear. If there's anything that you want to discuss, let me know. Also, leave me any video ideas that you want. I always am in the market for video ideas, especially now that we're all back in school and my brain is sort of toast. Thank you all for hanging in there for this really long review. I know I had a lot to gush about, but I hope that you will pick this book up. I'm glad that we were on the same page, and I will talk to you later. Toodles!